has not arrived. In that welcome, I pointed out to you that, as you know, we are here 6 years to the day after Katrina. And this is our 5th Katrina commemoration. I see some of you who were present with us at our first Katrina commemoration, which we called Hands Around the Dome. And on that day, as a part of the African tradition, which was described to you in part by Sister H.M.K. Amin, we lifted up the names of hundreds of people who were at that time known to have perished in the storm and the flood that has followed. And we have continued that tradition each year. Today, for the first time since Katrina, we have come to a different place. And on this occasion, we began a new tradition, which we call Hands Around Our Own. We begin that tradition today by lifting up the memory of Ronald Madison and James Brissette, and we claim them both as our own. We stretch out our hands to their families who are here. Brissette family, some with me here on stage. We honor the courage of these families and the willingness to use their resources, whatever they may be, in the pursuit of justice, and finally succeeding in changing the history of New Orleans. We acknowledge the memory of Henry Glover and the many others who were killed or wounded by the unjustified use of official violence in Katrina's wake, and we claim all of them as our own. We are met today near what has been known as the Danziger Bridge. And we are here to claim it as our own. More about that a little later. But first, some comments from a warrior in this town who has been a strong part of the African American Leadership Project since its inception. Brother Jacques Morial is in the audience. He needs no introduction from me. Well, we at the African American Leadership Project definitely claim him as our own.
Thank you, Ernest, and thank you to the African American Leadership Project. Thank you all for being here today. If you know somebody who lost a loved one in Katrina, raise your hand. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. If you know a child attending school more than a mile from their home, raise your hand. If you were displaced or any one of your loved ones was displaced during Katrina, raise your hand. Keep your hands up. If you know somebody displaced who wants to come home, raise your hand. Anybody out there who doesn't have their hand up? I don't think so. Well, today, 6 years after Katrina, 6 years later, in spite of the long-awaited verdict in the Danziger case, we still remember Katrina, and we still struggle. 6 years later, there are still dozens of families seeking justice. 6 years later, we have a police department more distrusted than any time since 1979 or maybe before. That's when there was a police strike. 6 years later, we have a rate of suicide still almost twice the national average. and still no replacement for the crisis intervention unit, the third floor of Charity Hospital, where mental health patients were cared for in a safe and culturally competent environment. 6 years ago, or a little bit less than 6 years ago, they told us that public housing communities were crime-ridden. They were factories of crime, and they had to be demolished in the middle of the worst housing shortage any American city had ever seen. 6 years later, nearly 4,000 homes destroyed, and crime is higher than ever.
That's right.
6 years ago, they said Charity Hospital was completely destroyed by flooding limited to the basement. Completely destroyed, even though General Henry and 200 soldiers cleaned it from stem to stern and had it ready to reopen. They said that they'd build a new state-of-the-art teaching hospital, that they had all the money, don't worry about it. 6 years later, they admit what lots of us knew and have been saying for years, that their own consultants finally admit that they're more than $500 million short on the money to build it, even though they said they had it. That they're going to lose $1 billion a year running it, money they don't have. Our vital health care delivery infrastructure is still crippled, with no safety net hospital, a neighborhood that was struggling to recover destroyed. And we all know that a modern, state-of-the-art, world-class hospital could have been built inside the four walls of Charity. For the money they had, it'd be open now. 6 years ago, they decided the public schools wouldn't reopen for the 2005-2006 school year. They fired thousands of loyal, qualified teachers and other employees, replaced them with a system of neighborhood schools, non-neighborhood schools with a four-tier system of privatized operators that largely deny special ed students their rights. Now they have no union. They got rid of the union. No teacher tenure. They got rid of that. No elected school board. And RSD schools are doing worse than the old Orleans Parish School Board. We've got the worst performing schools for poor students in the state. The worst. After hundreds of millions of dollars, we have a recovery school district that's not responsive to us, the voters, the taxpayers, with achievement worse than the schools they replace. 6 years ago, they said they wanted to reform everything. Reform was the buzzword. Well, if you study history, reform was also the buzzword at the end of Reconstruction, when they disenfranchised us. You know, in Louisiana in 1896, when Mike Foster I became governor, there were 138,000 black people registered to vote. 2 years later, after Foster, there were less than 3,000. Now, one of the leading minds of all of this captured their strategy, and he kind of let the cat out of the bag. He circulated an essay, a monograph, a missive, Return to Splendor. He said we should return to the splendor of the 19th century of Jim Crow values, an era of white hegemony, where a self-anointed civic elite made decisions without regard to the rights or interests of stakeholders. Return to splendor. Let's concentrate on the neighborhoods that weren't really damaged. That sounds a lot like the Green Dot Revisited, all wrapped up in a new package. These are just some of the reasons why we can never forget Katrina, because we continue to struggle, we continue to live it every day. Every day. Every day that you miss somebody that you cared about who is no longer with us on this earth, or just not close enough by for you to reach out and touch, or break bread with, or share a story, or a cry, or a laugh with. Every day that you think about somebody who was murdered in cold blood by the police who was sworn to serve and protect us. Every day when you pass a neighborhood that just isn't the same, or when you drive down Orleans Avenue and you wonder where the beautiful brick Lafitte housing development, housing has gone. Every day when you look at the cheap new Parkchester developments that are replacing our public housing. Every day when you wonder about your safety and the safety of your loved ones. This is why we can't forget Katrina. And isn't it something that city government, for the first time, doesn't have an official event to remember Katrina. And do they expect us to forget? Are they trying to turn the page on it? I think that all that we've been through and lived through every day, we can't turn the page on it. We never will. We'll never forget. To do so would dishonor those who suffered so much and those who paid the ultimate cost. The Madison and the Brissette families who lost a loved one for no good reason just a few steps from here. So when they suggest to you to turn the page, just let's put it all behind us. Remind them that more than 100 people who died in Katrina are still unidentified. Remind them that our streets are no safer than they were before. Remind them that our schools really are no better and don't serve our families or our community any better than before. Remind them that we still don't have a safety net hospital. Remind them that we don't have mental health and that we continue to struggle and suffer with a rate of suicide nearly twice the national average. Remind them to respect the rights of stakeholders, the people who most are concerned with their decisions. Never forget Katrina. Thank you.